The house was silent, too silent. The kind of silence that hums in your ears, the kind that makes your chest ache because it reminds you how alone you really are. Outside, rain traced trembling lines down the window pane, and I sat in the dim light of my room, staring at a photo I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Everyone was asleep. My father, my little sister, even the old clock on the wall seemed to breathe slower. But I was wide awake, fighting tears I had no strength left to hide. And then, just when I thought no one could possibly see through me, I heard her voice, soft and trembling in the darkness. You don't have to pretend. Before we continue, if this moment already pulled at your heart, take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Kindness Universe, where stories remind us that even pain can lead us home. It had been 3 months since Mom died. 3 months since the light in our house flickered out. Dad tried to hold everything together, pretending we were still a family, still strong. But the truth was, we were 3 ghosts living under the same roof, each haunting a different memory of her. My father buried himself in work, leaving before sunrise and returning long after midnight. My little sister, Lily, only 8 years old, slept with Mom's old scarf wrapped around her tiny arms. And me, I became the quiet one, the strong one, the one who made sure dinner was cooked and the bills were paid. I was only 19, but I aged decades in those 3 months. People called me brave, but bravery felt like a lie. Every time I smiled, it hurt. That night, I couldn't sleep. The walls felt too close, the air too heavy. I got up and walked through the dark hallway, each step echoing like the house itself was crying. I stopped outside Lily's door. Through the small crack, I saw her tiny form curled up, clutching that scarf. Her hair spread like a halo across the pillow. I felt a sharp sting in my chest. Mom used to tuck her in with that same gentle touch that made everything feel okay. Now, all I could offer was silence. I whispered a soft goodnight, though she couldn't hear me, and turned to go back to my room. But before I could close her door, I heard it, a whisper so fragile it almost broke apart in the air. You don't have to pretend. I froze. My heart stuttered. I turned around. Lily was sitting up now, her small eyes shimmering in the pale moonlight. You don't have to be strong all the time, she said, her voice trembling. Mom wouldn't want that. Her words shattered something inside me. I hadn't cried since the funeral, not once. I told myself someone had to keep going, someone had to be responsible. But in that moment, my walls crumbled. I dropped to my knees beside her bed, tears finally spilling, ugly and real. I clung to her as she clung to me, 2 broken hearts trying to remember how to beat and sync again. That night was the first time we talked about Mom. Really talked. We sat for hours, whispering stories about her laughter, her terrible singing in the kitchen, the way she danced barefoot on the tiles just to make us smile. Lily laughed through her tears. I listened, memorizing the sound, afraid it might fade like everything else. When she fell asleep, I stayed beside her, watching the slow rhythm of her breathing. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel entirely alone. I realized something. I wasn't the only one pretending. We all were, pretending we were okay. Pretending time would fix everything. Pretending silence was easier than pain. But grief doesn't heal in silence. It heals in shared stories, in broken voices, in trembling hands holding on to one another when there's nothing else left to hold. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the house began to change. Dad started joining us for breakfast again. Sometimes he even smiled. Just a little. Lily began drawing pictures of Mom, not as a memory, but as if she were still with us, sitting at the table, laughing. I hung them on the fridge, one by one, until our kitchen looked like a gallery of love and loss intertwined. I started writing letters to Mom every night. I'd tell her about my day, about Lily's drawings, about how hard it was to keep pretending. Sometimes I'd cry until the ink bled through the paper. Other nights, I'd just sit and stare at the ceiling, whispering her favorite lullaby under my breath. It wasn't about forgetting her anymore. It was about remembering her with honesty. One afternoon, I found Dad sitting alone in the garage. He was holding Mom's old gardening gloves, staring at them like they were made of glass. His eyes were red, his hands trembling. He looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen since the day she left: vulnerability. "I don't know how to do this," he said quietly. "I thought if I kept working, if I stayed busy, I wouldn't have to feel it, but it's everywhere. She's everywhere." I sat beside him. "I know," I whispered, "but maybe that's not a bad thing." He turned to me, confused. I smiled weakly. "Maybe she's still here, not in the way we want, but in every piece of love we still give each other. That's how she stays alive." He didn't respond, but his hand reached out, resting on my shoulder. It was enough. CTA reminder: if this story has touched your heart so far, take a moment to pause. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they're not alone, and subscribe to Kindness Universe, because every story here is a step toward healing. Winter melted into spring. The garden Mom once loved began to bloom again. Roses, lavender, and the small patch of daisies she called her sunshine. One evening I stood there, watching Lily chase fireflies, her laughter carrying through the warm air. Dad was kneeling beside the soil, planting new seeds. I closed my eyes and imagined Mom's voice, soft, warm, full of light. "You don't have to pretend," she would have said again. And for the first time, I believed her, because pretending to be strong had kept me alive, but letting myself feel made me human. And in that truth, in the tears, the laughter, the memories that refused to fade, I found her again. Not in photographs or empty rooms, but in every act of love we dared to show. Ending message life breaks us sometimes. It takes pieces of us we thought we could never lose. But what it gives back, if we let it, is the courage to love more deeply, to live more honestly, and to remember that healing isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about learning to hold it gently. So if you've been pretending, if you've been hiding behind strength because you think that's what the world expects, please stop. Let yourself feel, let yourself be human, because that's where real courage begins.